The sky above us is becoming a crowded place. On the very fringes of our atmosphere, satellites are helping us to communicate, find our way around, making our modern, busy lives possible. They are also watching us, allowing nations to spy on nations and providing the communications that are necessary for modern warfare. At the time of making this video, there are about 12,000 satellites in Earth's orbit around our planet. More than 7,000 of these are part of the Starlink mega constellation, a mission by Elon Musk's SpaceX program to surround Earth with an interconnected web of satellites. And this is merely the beginning. The Starlink fleet is set to grow, with thousands more satellites to be launched, perhaps as many as 42,000. These units aim to bring internet connection to the furthest regions of the globe, from the most barren Arctic tundra to towering mountain peaks, persisting in all weathers and when all other communication systems fail. But Starlink is not the only satellite venture from SpaceX. Less known is their military project, codenamed Starshield, which aims to build a satellite constellation with the support of a $1.8 billion contract with the US Department of Defense. Despite the glossy and marketable name, Starshield is shrouded in secrecy. It's designed for government use to support national security, but how? And at what cost? Let's take a closer look at a more family-friendly SpaceX satellite project, Starlink. First announced in 2015, Starlink was designed for the purpose of rebuilding the internet in space and aimed to place 4,000 satellites in low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit is standard for most satellites, even the International Space Station, and can be anywhere between 160 and 2,000 kilometers above Earth's surface. The goal of this system is connectivity where you least expect it. You need only plug the system in and point it at the sky with their antenna to get online. Besides digital gameplay in the mountains or taking a work call on the beach, the idea of worldwide internet connection actually has the potential for some really positive social change. Schools in remote areas of Fiji and the Solomon Islands have employed the use of Starlink to access digital teaching resources, which is making education more accessible for all. The Starlink fleet can be used to aid communications in the event of natural disasters, as it's less vulnerable than standard undersea cables. This came to light in 2024, when a 7.3 magnitude earthquake in Vanuatu took out the country's only undersea cable. Starlink was quickly able to deploy 300 satellites, which restored connection for emergency services and aided the national recovery operation. These success stories have contributed to Starlink's popularity surge, and the service now has over 5.4 million subscribers across the globe, with an estimated revenue exceeding $3.2 billion US. These are all great selling points, but what about the satellites themselves? How do they actually work? Well, the latest Starlink satellites are not small. They are 30 meters long and weigh as much as a small car, orbiting merely 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface. They are launched in a stack, as many as 60 at a time on SpaceX's own Falcon 9 vehicles, reusable two-stage rockets that have already completed nearly 500 missions. When deployed, the satellites use navigation sensors to survey the stars and position themselves incredibly accurately. Each unit contains 3 space lasers, which help it communicate with other units to form a global internet mesh. They each also have 8 antennas to connect with receivers on the Earth's surface, and they can adjust their position with ion propulsion systems that use argon for precise maneuverability. As I mentioned before, there are now over 7,000 Starlink satellites currently in orbit, and this number is expected to grow. As you can see from this availability map, the fleet already covers much of the Western Hemisphere, encompassing around 2.7 billion people. But SpaceX wants more, and several other countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, and even Antarctica are likely to be connected in the near future. It's quite the satellite empire. There may not be loads of information about Starlink, But there's far less about Starshield, SpaceX's other venture into the world of satellites. It can be said that Starshield is like Starlink's darker military cousin, and there are plenty of reasons why. Like Starlink, it's composed of low Earth orbiting satellites, but this time they serve the sole purpose of defense and are wholly owned and controlled by the US government, following the $1.8 billion contribution to the project by the National Reconnaissance Office in 2021. They have enhanced encryption and other security features for secure data processing and employ a modular design. This means that the satellites can integrate a wide variety of payloads, be it for communication, Earth observation, target tracking, early missile warning, and so on. Governments can mix and match, designing a Starshield satellite that best fits their specific requirements and defense objectives. The exact details of how Starshield has been used are pretty vague, but there's no doubt that it is in use. The US Marines have pounced on the new tech, implementing units across its 2nd Marine Division for both basic communications and more specialized tasks like targeting and fires. On their website, Major Tim Wren from the 2nd Division praised the satellites for their ability to maintain services during a service-level training event, despite poor weather conditions and power outages, which knocked out other satellite transmissions. Likewise, in 2023, SpaceX won a 1-year contract with the United States Space Force worth $70 million, and there has been recent speculation that Space Force may continue to use SpaceX satellites rather than front the cost of building their own. The project is rapidly gaining attention from clients of the highest office and shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. But how similar is Starshield to Starlink? An important point to mention is that both Starlink and Starshield can use the same inter-satellite laser communication terminals, which use laser beams to form high-speed data links between satellites, instead of traditional radio signals. SpaceX boasts the only communications laser operating at scale in orbit today, which basically means there is much less chance of other satellites, privately owned or otherwise, interfering with Starshield's data. This would obviously be appealing from a defense perspective, and clients can be fairly confident that it works, since SpaceX has been using this technology at scale for as long as Starlink has been running. In many ways, Starlink is like the portfolio SpaceX has brought along to its interviews for Starshield, and this has proven to be a pretty effective sales technique. It's clear from the marketing of both products that Starlink is meant to be a public consumer service, while Starshield is used for national defense. But with such similar technology, is there ever any crossover? Indeed, the line between Starlink and Starshield is blurred when you consider recent and ongoing conflicts across the globe. This year, Musk has taken to X, formerly Twitter, to state that his Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army, and that their entire front line would collapse if he turned the system off. And he has even done so momentarily on occasions. Starlink is used by the Ukrainian military for internet connection in remote war zones, and the Polish Digitization Ministry pays an estimated $50 million a year for the privilege. So Starlink is being used for defense purposes, and could easily be on par with Starshield as a military asset. It may only be providing internet connection, but it's what can be done with the internet that turns it into a weapon, and to simply turn it off would change the tide on this conflict within a matter of hours. That's an awful lot of responsibility for whoever's running these satellites, perhaps more than anyone could have envisioned when Starlink was first proposed. In a different conflict nearly 2,000 kilometers away, Starlink was allowed to start operating in a single hospital in Gaza last year as an exception to the internet blackout Israel had imposed across the region following months of negotiations. This has enabled vital communications between humanitarian aid workers in this region, though Israel is still reluctant to allow more coverage for for fear that it could be used against them in the war. These are all sensitive and politically charged issues, and some fear that SpaceX's involvement will make them all the more difficult to resolve. Essentially, this technology has given private companies like SpaceX a seat at the table for military debates that they would never have been privy to without it. For those involved in conflict, having to depend on a private company rather than a humanitarian NGO or an elected government official for services that could determine their fate in that conflict is risky. And yet, it's often an inevitable choice in the landscape of modern warfare. Without this technology, they face the likelihood that it will be used against them with disastrous consequences. Perhaps Starshield is SpaceX's way of disentangling Starlink from military uses, but this separation won't happen overnight, especially whilst these conflicts continue. And even if peace is won, there are logistical issues to sort out with both projects. As I mentioned, Starlink and Starshield use the same communication terminals and laser beam data links, which could make it harder for them to function independently of one another. But as long as they remain linked, we can expect things to get messy, especially if the same satellites can be seen as both a valid military target and a vital service for citizens.